The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. We have a full house here with us at the start of the show. I want to introduce everybody, but we have to start with Mr. Matt Asner.
Howdy.
Who hosts On the Spectrum with Matt Asner for us. Wonderful, wonderful gentleman. And next to him, we have Rio, who is better known as Soul Shaka. Thrilled to have him here this morning. First time for him to be on our show,
really?
Autism Live, yes. And of course, for our viewers who are familiar with the fabulous singer Spencer Hart, she's here with us this morning.
Yay.
And Will, I don't think you've been on Autism Live before either, Will Asner.
Howdy.
He's been on the spectrum.
Yes, but not here with me. And
we did a wonderful segment together.
Yes, which was so adorable. So thrilled that you could stop in and be here when I'm here as well. He's my buddy today. We've had a good time so far this morning. And you guys are all here. There's a surprise that's coming up.
Yes.
That we can't give away, but we can hint at. Matt, tell us what we can hint at.
Well, there'll be a special edition of On the Spectrum, very short edition of On the Spectrum, where we just announced the lineup for Light Up the Blues 2016.
And can we say when that is?
Yeah, I can tell you. It's May 21st.
Yes.
At the Pantages Theater.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And this is an amazing event every single year. It just gets better and better. Wonderful performers. I know that when you make the announcement, which is a hush-hush secret,
yes,
everybody is going to be very, very excited.
It's going to be, the great thing about the concert is there's a couple of great things about the concert. I think every year we build on what we've done in the past. And I think this year is no different. We're going to build on what we did in the past. And it's the fourth year, and it's going to be really exciting.
And where and when can people get tickets?
Tomorrow. People can actually start ordering tickets tomorrow at Ticketmaster.
Okay.
And once we make the announcement today, they'll know who they're going to buy tickets for.
Okay.
And it's going to be really exciting. And I will also say that one of the great things about the Light Up the Blues concert, and we'll probably do a segment maybe in May with Kristen and Chris.
Love that.
Come in together. But one of the great things about the Light Up the Blues concert is the incredible performances by people with autism there. And, Rio has performed twice at Light Up the Blues.
And you bring the house down when you perform.
He really does. I mean, and his performance is actually part of the film that's on iTunes. And you should definitely download that because it's just an amazing performance.
Absolutely.
And we've had it on the show before, I think.
Yes.
And then Spencer performed last year, and she was just incredible. She performed Ave Maria, and she was introduced by Jack Black and back introduced by who?
By Brad Pitt.
Yeah. It was so cool.
Yes.
It was really cool.
Absolutely. And there was not a dry eye in the house, I will say, when you sang, Spencer, because you move people whenever you sing. And you love Light Up the Blues, don't you? Do you like to go to the concert, Will?
Yeah.
It's a good time. Everybody has a good time.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite? Anybody want to say what's your favorite thing about Light Up the Blues?
Well, they light up the buildings blue.
That's a very cool thing. I like that too.
I like the blue lights.
Me too.
Yeah.
The Autism Speaks walk.
Okay. Love that.
Day concert.
Yeah.
Sing Jack Black.
Seeing Jack Black.
Seeing
Well,
Jack
of
Black.
course, we all enjoy that.
Well,
What's
who
your
knows?
favorite thing?
I don't even know if he's going to be there this year, so we'll have to wait and see.
All right.
You have to tune in to the special edition of On the Spectrum
And we're going to
in a
air
few
that later
hours.
today?
Later today. Yeah.
Later today.
When
Okay.
it's on the
Big
Spectrum
announcement.
again.
And we'll have to see if he's going to be there or not.
All
I
right.
don't know. What was the question?
What is your favorite thing about Light Up the Blues?
My favorite thing about Light Up the Blues is the adventure of it all.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of beautifully creative mountain that we climb every year that is just a great collaboration of heart and soul and creativity, and I just love it. And I love watching performers like Rio and Spencer rise to the occasion, because they really do. I mean, every time we've had a concert, our performers have risen to the level of Neil Young and John Mayer, and I mean, it's happened. They've really catapulted to that level, and it's a wonderful thing to see. It's just a great thing to see. It's infectious.
And this is
That's
your
why
baby.
we do it every year.
This is,
Well, it's my baby with Kristen Stills.
Yes.
And
it's a beautiful baby.
it is a beautiful baby.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm so thrilled that you guys were here this morning and took the time to stick around and do the start of the show. We're going to take a break here in a second as we say goodbye to these fine folks. And want to tell everybody that our special guests on the show today, we're having Christina Adams on the show, author of A Real Boy, and she's going to be talking with us about autism around the world as we get into World Autism Awareness Day and Autism Awareness Month. And then later on today, we have an interview with Temple Grandin about her new book, The Loving Push. So, but thank you guys for being here. Can't wait for the announcement. I want to hear later on who is going to be there at Light Up the Blues.
It's going to be cool.
Thanks for being here, you guys.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back with more Autism Live after these messages. Here, mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is.
Okay.
I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and I honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really, what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year, I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
Get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was really fun. I want to thank everybody for sticking around and being here, and I want to thank Kelby for being such a team player, so that when I say to him at 10 minutes to 9, why don't we just have everybody stay for a couple of minutes? And he's always game. It's really fun doing a live show, and it's fun doing a live show when somebody is like, okay, I'll humor you. Kelby's the best that way, and thrilled to have, because you know we don't often get that many people here in the studio. But now we'll take a minute to go back to the beginning and remind all of you that the show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will participate. We want to hear from you, hear your voice. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us here at the show and ways that you can be watching the show. Excuse me. I still have a little bit of a cough. But while he's doing that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. The hyphen is that dash. I've had people asking me about that. What is that? It's a dash. And when you go, there are many things to do on that page, and not the least of which is to participate with us through the live feature. If you put your cursor in the box that says your question, you start typing and hit enter, it shows up here on my screen, and in that way you and I can have a conversation, and even more important, you can have a conversation with our guests that we have here on the show. And we have a really wonderful show for you today. In addition to all the people that we just had on the show, So really thrilled to be here. I do like to remind you at the start of the show that while we have many experts and fabulous guests that are on the show, I am not one of the experts. I am an autism mom and a former teacher, and I'm thrilled to be here because my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he's now getting close to turning 13, and my life is good. And I love being able to say that, my life isn't perfect, right? And I don't know anybody whose is, and I'm not even looking for perfect, but my life is good. And my life is good because I got a lot of really good help and support from other parents, and we got really good resources and services, in particular Quality ABA. And we got our Quality ABA from CARD, and that's one of the reasons why we feature CARD so much on the show. Please don't think that I think that CARD is the only Quality ABA service provider that's out there. That's not the case. But I know that they give quality ABA therapy because they saved my life, they saved my son's life. My son is able to do all the wonderful things that he wants to do because we had the wonderful people from CARD coming, and they spent 5 years with us. 5 long years, and it wasn't easy, any part of it, but man, I couldn't be more grateful for it. And so I like to be here to be able to pay forward what we got and to help you on your way to find the resources that are going to help you. We know that it's not a one-size-fits-all, so please don't think that I think that everything that my son had is what you're needing in your life for your child, your student, or yourself. But my passion is helping you to know that you're not alone, that there are resources, and helping you to figure out how to get them. Because hope, Matt Asner was just here, and he loves to say hope, our favorite 4-letter word. So welcome to the conversation. Just don't mistake me for an expert. Hey, we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out what are the experts talking about, because a lot of times there's misunderstandings about what different things mean. Now, our jargon term for today is World Autism Awareness Day. Now, you might think, well, why do we need to have that explained? Well, I will tell you that I run into people on a daily basis who say, oh, well, that's just an Autism Speaks manufactured holiday. And there are people who are not fans of Autism Speaks for various and sundry reasons, because everyone can't be a fan of everything, right? But I want to make it clear that while Autism Speaks is a huge participant in World Autism Awareness Day, and they have something called Light It Up Blue, that I personally think is a wonderful thing, but not everybody does. I want to be clear that World Autism Awareness Day is not an Autism Speaks generated day. They did not create it. It is not theirs. They do not have ownership of it. So for those of you who don't participate in World Autism Awareness Day because you don't want to participate in something that's Autism Speaks, I want you to know you're missing the boat. That World Autism Awareness Day, our actual, you know how we always do an actual definition for you, it was created by the United Nations. And it was created in 2007, in fact, on December 18th of 2007. And now the world commemorates this day always on April 2nd. But I want to read to you the resolution adopted by the General Assembly on the 18th of December in 2007. The General Assembly, and it's headed 62139 World Autism Awareness Day. The General Assembly, recalling the 2005 World Summit outcome and the United Nations Millennium Declaration, as well as the outcomes of the major United Nations conferences and summits in the economic, social, and related fields. Recalling also the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, according to which children with disabilities should enjoy a full and decent life in conditions which ensure dignity, promote self-reliance, and facilitate the child's active participation in the community, as well as the full enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms on an equal basis with other children. Affirming that ensuring and promoting the full realization of all human rights and fundamental freedoms for all persons with disabilities is critical to achieving internationally agreed development goals. Aware that autism is a lifelong developmental disability that manifests itself during the first 3 years of life and results from a neurological disorder that affects the functioning of the brain, mostly affecting children in many countries irrespective of gender, race, or socioeconomic status, and characterized by impairments in social interaction, problems with verbal and nonverbal communication, and restricted repetitive behavior, interests, and activities. Deeply concerned by the prevalence and high rate of autism in children in all regions of the world and the consequent development challenges to long-term health care, education, training, and intervention programs undertaken by the governments, non-government organizations, and the private sector, as well as the tremendous impact on children, their families, communities, and societies. Is it going to give me page 2? It is not going to give me page 2. These are the reasons that they began World Autism Awareness Day. This is why it was created. This is who created it. And on this day, we commemorate it, April 2nd, every year. And you can commemorate it in whichever way you choose to, but I want you to know why we commemorate it. And that this is not something that is just the United States. It is not just Autism Speaks. The world is invited to commemorate this day for all of these reasons by the Secretary General. And again, this was signed into being on December 18th, 2007. So that is our jargon term for today. All right, moving on, we always have a question for you. And our question for you today goes hand in hand with this. So now, knowing what you know about World Autism Awareness Day, how do you commemorate this day? I will tell you that in this year, for our family, it is the annual Walk Now for Autism that is done by Autism Speaks. It happens at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And we will be attending that. Kelby will be there with me. Jem will be there with me. We have a booth there in the resource fair. And later on that day, there are so many things going on that day, and we have to pace ourselves. There are so many things that I would love to be going to on that day. But later on that day, our house will be lit up blue. That is what we do. And we will wear blue on the day. I'm wearing blue today because as we're moving into it, but we will wear blue that day. I know that there are some people who say, how will wearing blue make a difference? And how will lighting up your house make a difference? But I want you to know, and it's to each their own, right? If that is not the thing that commemorates it for you, then I hope you do something that does commemorate it for you. And there's so many things in my community to choose from. But it's important that it be something that's right for you, but I want you to know why the lighted up blue is important to me as a person. You know, every year, and I think this is the 5th year for lighted up blue. Every year that we have done it, something has happened as a result of the blue that was unexpected to me. A couple of years ago, when we moved into the home that we rent currently, we hung up our blue lights and we left them up the entire month of April. We didn't just do it on April 2nd. We just decided, you know, we're just going to light them up every day in April. And one of our neighbors complained. And, you know, it's interesting because we had Dee Wallace here yesterday, and I kind of made a little bit of a joke when she said, you know, everything in life we have the choice between fear and love. And I was thinking about it, and I laughed, and she said, and whenever possible, choose love, you know, and I said, well, that's going to put a crimp in my day because so much of my day is about fear. I'm just being honest. But I think even bigger than that, as an autism mom, and I had a conversation, I actually had 2 conversations with different autism moms yesterday where we talked about anger. And how everything seems like it has to be a battle. And I was thinking about what Dee said and realizing that fear and anger, I don't know about you, but when I'm in fear, I can't bear to be in fear and I move to anger very quickly. But it's really about fear. but in that moment when my landlady called me and said that our HOA, she'd gotten they'd filed a thing and that she was being fined $50 for us having Christmas lights up in April. And so she called me angry and saying, you know, why am I being fined $50? Why haven't you taken your Christmas lights down? And I instantly went to anger about, why would somebody who has the time to, and this was mid-April, so our lights had been up for 2 weeks, and I thought somebody drove by and it bothered them so badly that they had to fill out a form and say, I'm bugged by the fact that they have blue Christmas lights on in April. And I thought, who has that kind of time, really? And I was getting some anger from my landlady, and in that moment, I did have a moment where I thought, okay, but this is a teaching moment. I used to be a teacher, once a teacher, always a teacher. This is a teaching moment. And now I get to explain to my landlady what those lights are about, and she gets to go back to the HOA and explain it to them, and they get to go back to my neighbor and explain it to them. And those are 3 conversations about autism that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I don't know precisely if that's what, but shortly after that, somebody in our neighborhood, I don't know whether they just saw the lights and knew what it was or whether it was tied to that, but somebody in our neighborhood came to our house and said, I understand that you know something about autism and can I talk to you? And, those are the conversations that are everything, are absolutely everything. We had John Asher on the show yesterday, and we mentioned when his ex-wife, Jenny McCarthy, went on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And she was on the show with Holly Robinson Peete. And Oprah said, we're going to do a conversation about autism. And these 2 very powerful, well-known women are going to talk about the fact that they have children who are on the autism spectrum. And then we're going to stay after, and people are going to be able to call in and talk to Jenny, and they're going to be able to talk to Holly about autism. And I had said yesterday, it was a big game changer for me. And my son had already been diagnosed. My son we had started good quality ABA, but it changed 2 things for me. It was the first time that I didn't feel completely alone, right? And it was the first time Holly said something on the show that she has said many times since, and if you're not watching For Pete's Sake, let me just tell you right now, you need to be watching that. It's on the Oprah Winfrey Network, and it's on Saturday nights. You've only missed 2 episodes, and I'm sure you can go back and watch them on demand, but it's powerful, you guys, powerful. And I'm not just saying that because I love Holly, it's powerful. I do love Holly, but it's powerful. Okay, so what Holly said on the show was that, a lot of times people use the term autistic, and that she and her family, they had decided not to do that because in looking at her son, he was more than autism. And so they decided to use the person first language and say that he is someone who has autism. I know that's really controversial, and that there are a lot of friends that I have on the autism spectrum who don't like that, that they would rather be called autistic. Temple Grandin, who's going to be with us in just a little while, she refers to herself as being an autistic, and that is how she likes it languaged. But it, for me as a mother, thinking of him as somebody who has autism, it opened something up for me, and it allowed me to look at more than just the autism for my child, and was the beginning of that acceptance that we were talking about yesterday with both Dee Wallace and with John Asher, about being able to look at our kids and see them and love them for who they are and not be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of, right? But sometimes you don't know that. Nothing to be embarrassed about. It's not, in the beginning, when you hear that your child has autism and you get somebody who says, oh, and they're not going to be able to, all these things that they don't know whether they're going to be able to do or not, it feels like a tragedy. And the beginning of the healing is when you realize, oh, this is not a tragedy. My child is different, but not less. And that began for me on that day when Holly Robinson Peete and Jenny McCarthy were on Oprah. And I think that every time we are able to give that conversation to someone else, whether it's because we're wearing a blue shirt and somebody says, why is everybody wearing blue today? What is that about? Why are there blue lights? What is this about? Those conversations are the ones that make the difference. I honestly believe that. It's a drop in the bucket, but let's remember that the Grand Canyon was made by a lot of drops in one bucket. And I also think back to a couple of years ago, because we're getting ready to go to the Mardi Gras for autism in just a couple of weeks. And I think back to that wonderful day a couple of years ago, and it rained, but everybody pulled together and had this beautiful event, and we were tearing it all down. And a woman was coming out of a restaurant as we were tearing everything down, and she was breezing by me, and she goes, so, hey, what was this thing you guys were doing? Looks like it was a lot of fun. What was it all about? I said, oh, it was the Mardi Gras for autism. And her face fell, and she goes, oh, what a horrible thing. What a horrible, horrible thing. And I said, oh, no, you're mistaken. You're absolutely mistaken. Not a horrible thing. And she said, oh, but there's nothing you can do, and those kids are lost forever. I said, oh my gosh, you're reading an old newspaper. Come read my newspaper. That's not what it's about. There's all kinds of help. There's all kinds of support. There's kids making great strides, kids doing all kinds of things. It's not game over. All kinds of things you could do. And she stood and talked with me in the parking lot for a half an hour because she had a good friend with a child on the spectrum. Those conversations, those are the ones that make a difference. So light it up blue. That's what I do, because it makes conversations. Every year it has. So that's how I'm going to celebrate it. Look forward to hear how you guys are celebrating it. Okay, moving on, because I'm taking up way too much time, but we've got a great show for you today. Amazing, in fact. In just a little while, we're going to have Christina Adams, who's going to be with us. Christina Adams is one of my real life heroes. She wrote the book, A Real Boy. You want to talk about a game changer for me. I followed in her footsteps as closely as I could because she was a card parent, and she wrote a book about her experience of getting her son early intervention at card. And I read that book and I said, we're gonna go right behind her. And it's been amazing in my life that I've gotten to meet her, and I call her a friend now. And Christina is amazing. She travels around the world. She is, I think, the world's leading expert on camel milk and how camel milk can be used with autism and how it can be helpful. And so she's going to be talking with us, giving us a world perspective about some of the places that she's been. We're going to drink a little camel milk. It's going to be exciting. So she's going to be here. But we also have an interview with Dr. Temple Grandin talking about her new book. So that's a really thrilling thing. I'm going to admit to you guys that it's not live. So if you guys are writing in with questions for Dr. Grandin, I want to tell you that, we did just tape it. So it is not live, but, she's thrilling, absolutely thrilling to talk to, always enjoy her so much. She makes me laugh. She makes me smile. I love her sense of humor, but more than anything, her insight into the world of autism and what our kids need. I will tell you that, stick around for the end of the interview because there's been a lot of discussion this week. In fact, did I skip right past the topic, Kelby? I think I did. Our topic for this week is talking about the discussion about autism, the conversation, because there's been a lot of publicity this week about what is the conversation. Robert De Niro's film festival, the Tribeca Film Festival, said that they were going to screen Vaxxed. Then they got a lot of pushback, and he came forward with a statement and said, we're still going to screen it because it's an important part of the conversation, and conversations need to be had. Then they reversed their decision and said, we're not going to screen it because with more information, we don't believe that this is the conversation, that this will further the conversation. And people have been arguing about it, but what I love is that a lot of great autism organizations have said, hey, let's identify that there is a conversation and let's Let's focus on having the conversations. But again, we need to go back to what is the conversation? And one of the questions that I ask Dr. Grandin is, what do you think the conversation is? And I think you're going to love what her answer is. So in any case, do we have that ready, Kelby? Should we just go to the Temple Grandin interview? Welcome. We're here with Dr. Temple Grandin on the phone. We're so excited to have an opportunity to talk with her. However you view this, have your say, speak up, let people know what's happening in your corner of the world with autism. Find a way to commemorate Autism Awareness Day. I do think it makes a difference. Make it unique to you, make it be meaningful to you, but I do think that it's important. Whatever's best for you, Calby. We're discussing whether we're going to do a break first. All right. We're going to do a break first, and then when we come back, we'll be back with the Temple Grandin interview. So first take a look at this, and then Temple Grandin.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for Military Families 10K and 5K Run, Walk, and Family Fun Festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma. Working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I'm personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to Act Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being Act Today that does a fantastic job.
Act Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does Act Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight 2 battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Welcome. We're here with Dr. Temple Grandin on the phone. We're so excited to have an opportunity to talk with her about her new book. So Temple, everybody's talking about this book. It's something that's very timely, especially for those of us who have kids that are teenagers or about to be teenagers. Tell our viewers what the new book is.
Well, Deborah Moore, a psychologist out in California, came to me with the idea of doing this book. And one of the big things we wanted to talk about is the problem of certain kids on the autism spectrum getting addicted to video games. And I'm seeing some very bad outcomes. You know, like he's 23 years old, he's in the basement playing video games, and he doesn't do anything else. And Deborah Moore put together a great chapter in the Loving Push on video games. We also have some very nice first-person profiles of people on the spectrum being successful in jobs, which is a really good positive thing. I can't emphasize enough the importance of kids getting jobs when they're in high school, even volunteer jobs at the church or anything. They've got to learn that discipline and responsibility of having a job. You've got to be there on time. You've got to be reliable. When I was 15 years old, I was cleaning horse stalls, and when I was 13 years old, my mother got me a sewing job. I've seen too many smart kids on the spectrum that are not learning how to work.
Yeah, and I love the idea, Temple. You talk about this a lot, about how we can't just expect them to be ready for a job suddenly, miraculously, when they turn 18, that there's a whole process that we have to do to help them to be ready, and that we used to do this all the time, that I had to do jobs, odd jobs around the neighborhood well before I was at an age where I was eligible for a job. And you did as well, right?
Well, when I was 13, Mother got me a little sewing job, and when I was even younger, I'd washed a few cars. It's important to have a slow transition from the world of school to the world of work. I'm seeing too often where a child on the spectrum graduates from college, and he has never had a job of any kind of a job. And so if you have a kid in high school, I want to get him out working. He can be in the informal economy when he's young. As soon as he's 14, 16, I want him to get a real job just to learn work skills. If you have individuals in college right now, they need to be doing career-relevant summer internships. I worked at a research lab. It was an unpaid internship where I did work on experiments on rats, actually, and mice. And I had to rent a house with another lady, and it was just set up in the neighborhood. They've got to learn working skills, and that ought to happen before they graduate from school.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of internships, and you and I had an opportunity to talk a couple of weeks ago about summer camp situations, because I was sharing with you that I'm having a really hard time finding a summer camp that I think is advantageous for my son, who's really into tech things. And you had some great ideas about making it happen in the neighborhood, and I wondered if you'd share some of that with our viewers.
Well, let's just look at things. You know, we have a huge shortage in this country right now of car mechanics and diesel mechanics. Well, maybe some retired mechanic needs to set up a small engine repair class to just do with middle school kids so they can find out engines are cool. You know, a lot of schools are taking out hands-on classes. Now, in Texas, I know that some of the places, they're putting that back in again. But how are students going to find out what they want to do for a career if they're not exposed? I get asked all the time, how did I get interested in the cattle industry? Because I was exposed to cattle when I was 15. That's how I got interested in them.
Yeah, and so I love this idea that if we can't find the camp, you were suggesting to me, make it happen myself. You really lit a fire in me and inspired me. And I think what a great idea. For families, though, and you talk about this, the loving push. This is not about being mean, but about being loving and caring. This is what we do to raise our kids. What do you suggest if a parent is sitting there this summer and they've got a 15-year-old, they're not quite sure how to go about getting their kid an odd job or getting something happening in the neighborhood? What do you suggest?
Well, Mother just found a sewing job. She just saw a sign on a lady's house that said, you know, freelance seamstress, and she just went in and offered up my skills. She knew I was good at hand sewing. It was just done in the neighborhood. The internship at the research lab was just done in the neighborhood. It's set up to the people that were there in the school and with my mother.
We're here at the show. We're really loving. There's a new show on the Oprah Winfrey Network that's called For Pete's Sake, and it's Holly Robinson Peete and her family. She's got a 17-year-old son who's on the spectrum, and in the most recent episode, both she and her husband took their son to businesses that they frequent and said to the business owner, hey, have you got something here for our child? Is there, can you show him what you do here? I just thought that was really proactive of them, that they didn't wait for somebody to approach them. They went to the business. Do you think that's a good idea?
That's the thing to do. I ask parents all the time, what do you know, shopkeepers, especially independent businesses, just do something in the neighborhood. And that sewing job is a perfect example of just setting it up in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and it seems, as you said, in high schools anymore, there used to be vocational training, and there isn't anymore. But so instead of waiting for the schools to bring it back, you had talked to me about the all-important lawnmower a couple of weeks ago, and how lawnmowers, old lawnmowers are around, and even learning how to repair a lawnmower is something that's a great skill for kids.
Well, it gets a kid interested in engines. He's going to find out that maybe engines interest him. And that lawnmower could then go on and turn into an auto mechanics class. See, the problem is that all of those vocational things have moved to the community college. But that's almost too late. We need to be getting these kids hooked on some of these skilled trades and vocational things before they graduate from high school.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I wondered if we could take just a second to talk with you, Dr. Grandin, about inclusion and how you feel about, there's a big push right now that a lot of schools have started specific programs that are just for kids with autism, where they're putting them someplace else on campus. Likewise,
now, what age of kids are you talking about?
I'm talking about junior, from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And then there are other schools that are making a big push for inclusion, having everybody in the classroom together. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about either of those models.
Well, sometimes the correct thing to do for a particular kid is something in between. But I'll tell you something I don't want to see. I walk into a brand new autism school, and you got 4 or 5 very severely handicapped kids in a room, and then they're sitting amongst them as a 12-year-old that should definitely not be there, fully verbal, just messing around on a computer. He should be in a gifted class. That's what I don't want to see. See, autism is turned into such a broad spectrum that I'm seeing too many of the Asperger type of kids held behind when they ought to be working for NASA. I've talked to a lot of people at NASA. I know there's people there that are sort of mildly on the spectrum. So one kind of geeky kid gets to go work for NASA or Google, and another geeky kid's playing video games in the basement on Social Security, and they're the same geeky kid.
Yeah.
See, I don't get hung up on the labels. I'm seeing the people. I see them as I talk about it.
Yeah, I got to say, I think that you got such an insight in this area, Dr. Grandin, and I would love to see some of these programs spring up that can fill this gap in a way that's really affordable for families. I think that an industrious parent knows how to get this started, but there are a lot of parents that probably need some help getting these things started. And if
well, they just sort of, the other thing I've found is I've worked for 20 years in the construction industry. I would design a project, then I'd supervise its construction. And one thing I learned is how do you get things done? Like if you ran out of parts, we got on the phone and called. Now today you get on the internet and search, they have found the parts. There's an urgency. How do you get it done?
Yeah. It's the problem solving that I think is missing. We talk about teaching critical thinking in high schools and junior highs, but if it's not practical and hands-on, I don't know that the lesson really gets taught.
Well, hands-on things. I remember in sewing, and I loved sewing when I was in elementary school, and I cut some fabric wrong in a wrecked project. And I learned from that you don't rush. Some other time you might make a mistake, and then you just have to figure out some other way to do it. When I made bird kites that I flew behind my trike when I was really little, I experimented with these bird kites. Hands-on things teach practical problem solving. And I think a lot of people today don't know how to do practical problem solving because they haven't done any hands-on things.
Yeah, no, it's true. And a lot of times, I love that the book talks about how we're going to have to push our kids, because I think a lot of people, myself included, I have coddled my kid. You pointed that out to me this fall. We went to lunch together, and I was not letting my son use the restroom by himself, and you went up one side of me and down the other, and he's very grateful to you, Dr. Grandin.
And you know what? He just got right up and he used it.
He did, and whenever I'm being too much of a smother now, he threatens to call you. because he knows that you're on his side. And that's good. You know, I think parents need that.
And I knew that at that barbecue restaurant, that restaurant was going to be perfectly safe.
Yes, and he had such a good time with you that day, I have to say. Now, I wonder, as we're getting ready to be in April, Autism Awareness Month, and a lot of people are going to be talking about autism, and already this week there's been a lot in the news talking about autism, and there's a discussion about what the discussion should be. And I'd like to hear from you, Dr. Grannon, about what do you think the discussion about autism should be right now?
Well, I'm very concerned about how broad the spectrum is. And I don't want to see a smart, geeky kid who maybe should work for Google going down the wrong track. You see, the problem is when you just think about it in language, you get locked into the label. See, one advantage of being a visual thinker is I see a geeky kid at a gifted conference, then I go over to an autism conference, they're the same geeky kid. And then I go to a tech company and I see 10 years older, it's the same kind of geeky kid. I want to see them get into those good jobs. And then you've got another end of the spectrum where they're very severely handicapped. They're not going to work for Google. You see, this is the problem we've got with the autism diagnosis. It's so broad, going from someone who remains with very severe handicaps to somebody that ought to be in a gifted program, but they're socially awkward. This is one of the things that's a real problem. Now, when it comes to early intervention, that's one place where that's really improved. You've got 3-year-olds that are not talking. You've got to start working on that kid and working on him right now.
Yeah, I so agree with you about the huge wide spectrum. And I know I promised you that we weren't going to keep you very long, so I want to thank you for being with us. We're going to close out of the recording, but then I'm going to ask you to stay on the line with me for just one quick second when we're done. But thank you so much. And just a last question for you, Dr. Grannon. Do you do anything particular in the month of April to commemorate Autism Awareness Month?
I've got a ton of speaking engagements.
Well, and that is such a great service to our community. You always enlighten us. You always lift us up. And we thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
And we're going to be right back with more Autism Live after these messages.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions, things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you wanna do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. I got this, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll it up, like so, and I'm gonna wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm gonna make it a little bit tighter, and I'm gonna roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll. And what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
There's Miss Jessica. Hello. Hi. Say hi. See? What is it? What's that? Giraffe. He's getting really good at that. How about that guy? Who's this guy?
We have this one program called NVI, which is non-vocal imitation. So he basically has to imitate whatever we do. So we were working on object manipulation, and then Tuesday, I tried doing more gross motor things like clapping hands or standing or jumping, and he was able to imitate all of those.
Ready? Do this. Yay! Very good. Okay, here you go. Who's hiding now? Me? Do this. Good job. Okay, here you go. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, ready? Do this. Yay! All right. Here you go, Rockstar. Oh, that's so cool. Alright, you ready? Do this. Good job. Very good. So that was actually a fine motor action with a touch nose. Oh, yeah. How did that happen? You want more? You want more of this? More? Okay. Good asking. We'll do a couple more actions, okay? Do this. Good job. Do this. Good job. Do this. Good try. Here. Can you try? Do this. There you go. All right. Here you go. He's been doing a lot more on his own, even just when I attempt him by just holding the object, not necessarily asking him to imitate more. Cat, that's right. He does do it on his own now, which is really cool. Good asking, buddy. Out. Line that up. That one's up. Oh, there you go. See? How many up do you want to go? You touch the block? God, what is it? Block. Good job. Sorry, I'm just curious. This is cool. Okay. I'm interested too. Touch shoes. Where's the shoes? Let's go try. Okay. Let's see. You touch crab. Where's the crab? Can you touch it with your finger though? Thank you. Did you see that? What is it? Crab. Say crab. That was so funny. I didn't specify, huh? Touch block. Good job. What is it? What is this? Block. This is his receptive labels, so what I just did basically. And our supervisor had written down things that's in his environment that he might not know or that he might know the labels to, or if he's just seen it or heard the label for it, not necessarily know how to say it per se. And I just went through block, guitar, bear, plain, cat with him. And so he
actually knows all of them. So I'm actually going to go through his environment just to see other things like shoes. He actually knew almost everything on here except fork, I think. Yeah. So that's actually really impressive. You amaze me every day, kiddo.
We're taking a walk. We just finished dinner, getting ready to go to bed. But part of our after dinner tradition suddenly has been to take a walk. Make sure. Say, come on, Mama. Come on, Mama. Right, Jack? And then we say, stop. Go. Stop. Go. So we're practicing our stops and goes. Stop. Good stopping. Go. Stop. Good stopping, Jack. Stop. Good stopping. Good job, love. Look at me. Say bye-bye.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I hope you really enjoyed the interview with Temple Grandin. But right now, we have another one of my real life heroes here with us in the studio, Christina Adams. I'm sure that you have tons of fans, so it's one of those things where I could easily argue that I'm your biggest fan, but I'm sure that there are people who would knock me down and go, no! But I am one of your hugest fans. I said to my husband like 2 nights ago, I said, I don't think she realizes how much I idolize her. I really do. You're amazing. And let's start with the fact that you're an autism mom, you're an author and a beautiful writer. A gifted writer. But I was saying before that you are probably the world's leading expert in camel milk and the use of camel milk for autism.
Well, strange but true.
Right?
But there's a lot of people that have some, like camel science people, they know a lot about camels and things like that. But I would say at that confluence where, autism and camel milk mix, yeah, you're kind of looking at me weirdly enough. But happily, I love what I do.
And it didn't start out that way. I mean, we have to say that it wasn't like you went, I think I'm going to be a camel milk expert and talking about autism. In fact, when I was introduced to your book, camel milk wasn't even on your radar at that point. So, it makes me think, what are you going to do next, Christina? Because you've led this amazing, amazing life. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you have done. And I thank you for your book. See, I don't want to get all emotional and cry, but your book was the game changer for us. Your book set us on the path that got us to where we are now. And so there aren't enough thank yous in the world for your book. I said earlier that I read your book and said, I'm going to follow as closely behind this woman as I possibly can to get my son the help that he needs. That's what I did. And by the way, it worked beautifully. So I always thank you, and I thank the family that put your book in our hands.
Well, gosh, thank you so much, Shannon. You just move me every time that I get to talk to you. What a big-hearted person you are. And I had the pleasure of meeting your son recently, as you remember, and
yes.
Wow, what a kid he is. So,
cool.
Shannon, I just can't say enough about the fact that, we're in these lonely rooms when we're starting to deal with autism. And even if you're surrounded by family and things like that, which I'm sure you were, you're still in a lonely room, if not only in just your head. So I sat in my lonely room and I wrote the book. Just all I thought was, there are people out there. The story is not being told. There's no books where I'm looking that's telling this kind of story. And so I wrote that. So really one of the things that I've learned over this journey now is that we're in a lonely room when we have a child diagnosed with an illness, especially one like autism, which is so socially debilitating. So the only way that you can really, A, help your child and your family, and B, get a life for yourself when you are facing the difficult stuff that you're going to face for the rest of your life, you have to get out of that lonely room in your head, and you have to reach out to other people. So I just am so glad you're one of the people that I was kind of writing for when I didn't even know you existed.
You touched me deeply. And we keep referencing the book, but I want people to know the book is called A Real Boy. I think Kelby has a picture of the cover. I was going to bring in my copy here today, but here's the thing. I can't manage to keep a copy of your book because there it is. Just seeing the cover of that book means so much to me. Honestly, I'm just all verklempt all of a sudden. But I can't keep it because when people say to me, okay, my kid was just diagnosed, I need to know, is there hope? I need to know what to do. It is, and I love books. I covet books, but there are some books that you go, I need to go like this with this book. And I keep getting copies of your book and I keep lending them out. And so I don't have it on my shelf today. So Kelby is showing you the picture of it. But that book was such a meaningful part of the beginning of our journey. And looking at the picture of that little boy on the cover of that book was such a part of our journey. So I encourage everybody, read the book. It's an amazing, amazing book. And it's a different time now than it was. So I want to say to people that, probably your experience at CARD, even by the time I was at CARD, it was slightly different, and now it's a lot different. But I only think, honestly, that the experience, I think CARD has gotten better at doing what they do, doing it quicker, doing it more efficient, and ultimately having it be less disruptive for a family. It's still hard.
Yeah. It's still hard. I mean, everything to do with autism is hard. Imagine the people that went before us who didn't even have IDEA in the United States to educate their children. And imagine the people who were told, it's a refrigerator, mother, you caused your child's autism because you're too smart and intellectual and some kind of weird discredited theory like that. So, I mean, imagine what they did. So I guess our goal is why we do what we do, that every person that comes behind us has it easier, and the children are more welcomed and are more understood.
Absolutely.
I mean, and they grow up to be adults. So now we're looking at that early generation that really spiked in terms of autism diagnoses in the United States. Those kids are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and they are carving new paths. They don't really have a path laid out for them. So, those kids are our kids, and other kids are going to be following along too. So I guess we all need to help each other.
It's a new frontier.
Yes.
But we'll come back to that, but I want to talk about what's on the desk here. You've got this beautiful mug that's here, and tell them what is the powdered substance in the beautiful little glass cup.
Well, in honor of World Autism Awareness Day, which is coming up in just, 2 days?
Yes.
Countdown to Big Blue, Light It Up Blue.
Yes.
So I thought, let's talk about the big picture in autism. And so I thought, let's do a little bit of the global aspect today, because we are a global family when it comes to autism. We're all the same. So I happen to, in my autism journey, come across camel milk, which we'll definitely talk about how that happened in a little while. But this happens to be powdered camel milk from the United Arab Emirates, and I love to put it in tea. And the Somali people in America taught me how to make their special Somali tea. So they load it up with lots of sugar, which I only use 1 packet, but they put a lot, and they put a lot of camel milk in it in their culture traditionally, because they are one of the world's foremost camel cultures, the Somali, and we have quite a few living in the United States. So I have met some lovely people from San Diego, and I sat with them in their cafe and learned how to drink this properly. So I got this beautiful mug in a mall in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and
it's beautiful.
Got some camels on it, and so here we go. Let's have our toast.
You've made some for me beforehand here.
Yes. Now,
so I'm gonna give this a taste.
Okay, ready to go.
Wow, creamy.
Yeah,
lovely.
Creamy. Okay, I'm sure there's some appropriate, phrase to say with that when you drink it, but I can't remember the language right now.
But it's creamy and it's lovely and it's really refreshing.
Yeah, those are like common adjectives that people say. So it's kind of a nice texture too. A lot of people think it's going to taste like goat milk, but it doesn't. And that's the number one thing. When people are going to try camel milk, they get a little nervous sometimes and they say, "What's it going to taste like?" And I don't like to tell them anymore. I just want them to try it.
It's
so
lovely.
Then they drink it, and they go, "Oh, It tastes like milk.
That's lovely.
Yes, because it is milk.
I love it. Okay, so let's go back in time a little bit. That if anybody has read A Real Boy, the whole journey about what happened with Card, but then it gets left off at the end of the book where your child is in a really good place, and you're in an okay place. And this amazing thing has happened, and you realize the progress that your child has made. And we leave off there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing to think of all the things that have happened since then. First of all, I want to say, is there going to be a follow-up book?
I am trying very hard to make that happen. So bear with me, bear with me.
Okay.
You will be absolutely
because
one
there
of the first
needs to
know.
be a follow-up book. I know I'm not the only person who I've gotten to hear a little bit about your story. I know I'm not the only person who would line up to read that book.
Thank you.
So absolutely a thing. I know you have many, many, many things on your list, but that has to happen. Okay, so give us though an idea of when and how did camel milk show up?
Isn't it strange because I'm a coal miner's granddaughter. I'm from Virginia. My family legacy is probably, from Europe, England, and some Wales, and probably some Native American in there, and things like that. So, they used mules in the mines. Okay. There were no camels, of course, in the American history at that part of the time in our part of the country, Virginia. So, I'm not a natural kind of like wildlife or camel person at all. I like animals, they're fine. I lived on a farm for a while.
But no camels?
No camels, not the slightest. No giraffes, no zebras, no exotics. The closest I got to exotic animals was the National Zoo in Washington where I was born.
Okay.
So, basically right after the book, which ended on a good note because I was in a good place.
Right.
Pretty much after that, I ended up becoming a single mom, which I've discussed with you before.
Yeah.
And right after I got separated from my husband, at the time, I was at a children's book fair, and I talked about that. I met a guy with a camel. And
as you do at a children's book fair.
Of course, yes, naturally. Of course, we've all had this experience, right? Or a bird landing on your shoulder, what have you. But the camel thing, that was a little different. So I did talk to him. Great guy. Oasis Camel Dairy in Ramona, so they're nearby, and they become good friends. But to me, he was just a camel guy at the time with the green hat on. And so I learned about that they give camel milk in hospitals to babies in the Middle East because it's thought to be non-allergenic. And that and a couple other quick things, but nothing about autism, nothing like that. Right. So I just had that intuition, like I think it's going to really help my son. Just in some way, I don't know. So that's,
and your son had done the GFCF diet.
We had done GFCF. I had a meeting in my house once for a bunch of moms on the specific carbohydrate diet, the colors, the dyes, you name it. So diet.
Right.
So he was primed and ready to go for the next level. Only I didn't know at that time there was a next level. But then I found that I'm like, this has got to happen. So, you just have to really trust your intuition. Sometimes our intuition is, can lead us in a weird path, but usually it's pretty right on. So that's when I got the milk into the country from some Bedouins in the desert in Israel, and got
that
it
in and of itself, that's a movie. That's not just a book. That's a movie. How you ended up getting camel milk into the United States.
That is very interesting. So let's just say it involves suitcases and people in Israel flying over here and driving in the middle of the night to airports and being told you got to get a permission for this. And so weirdly enough, I did get permission from the federal government. I have to hand it to the U.S. Department of Agriculture for doing that. They saw that there was a need. They gave it to me, and I think I'm the first person to get that level of permission for camel milk and autism in the United States.
And so was it just purely that he said to you, they give this to children in hospitals, and your intuition that said it was just that, or did you go and do a bunch of research at that point?
Well, really what he said was they give it to premature infants in hospitals.
Okay.
Because it's thought to be non-allergenic and safe and things like that. He also said, I think he said, neither one of us can remember this for sure, but we do believe he might have said it's thought to be close to human breast milk.
Okay.
But all I knew was at that time, I had two thoughts. It was number one, I think this might help my son in some way. It might help his immune system. And if we boost the immune system, maybe we're going to get more language smoothing out.
Right.
We're going to get a little better eye contact. Because, you know, whenever you do a dietary thing on a child with autism that has the issues, which are quite common, you do see those kind of improvements.
Yeah.
You know, if you're lucky, not always, but you generally see those kind of improvements. So I just had that thing in me. It was just an intuition. Like, I just have to find out about it. So I went home, looked on the computer. There was really nothing, except 4 kind of articles about making cheese, which was weird, and some kind of yicky article about ulcer healing in the Ural Mountains or something in Russia. It was like, this is kind of, you know, not that helpful, but interesting. And at that time, I wasn't used to reading PubMed articles that much, which now, of course, I totally am. But so I just kept on, and I had to move out of my house. My son and I had to move out of the house that we lived in and did all the card therapy in. That was the home of a real boys setting.
Wow.
So we had to move out. And so I became a single mom, you know, on New Year's Day with the serious rainstorm coming down. I got a condo by a freeway between a not so nice motel and behind a convenience store, about 59 steps behind a convenience store. And so, you know, it was a nice condo. Location wasn't that awesome, but you know, whatever it is, it is. You have to do what you have to do. And honestly, your health, your emotional health, and your well-being is way more important than where you live, or what you wear, or what you buy, or what you drive. So do not. I always tell people that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is your freedom and your emotional well-being in your child. So that's the step that we took. But so, yeah, I just didn't let go of the camel milk thing. So I went to the library at a local university, and I researched it, and one article came up, finally in January. An article came up, and it was by an Israeli veterinarian, Reuven Yagil, and he had written an article about giving camel milk to autistic kids, and they got better.
A veterinarian.
A veterinarian, but he's a camel expert. But it was just a short-term thing. It didn't have a long-term follow-through. But I was like, bingo, that's it. Got to get this stuff. So at that time, being the single woman, I'd gone back to my health club. And autism moms take heart. I used to belong to a great health club, but my son wouldn't stay in the child care. Shocker, I know.
Yeah.
So I had to leave. Couldn't go to the gym anymore. But then he was better, so I could go back to the health club. And, you know, getting that single life back, getting yourself in shape, feeling good, and meeting people. And I started playing squash. So I met a great person, a bunch of friends, but this one person was a Pakistani gentleman, a squash player. He was so nice. He didn't even have kids then. He's like, I want to help you and your son. I'm going to Israel. I'll try to get this milk for you.
Wow.
And then he was going to, but then he did bring it back, and it got dumped at JFK because we didn't have permission. We didn't know anything about that.
And so it's essentially contraband, and so they smashed the bottles and
well, you had to have permission. I don't know exactly. I could ask him, but he said, I got it, but they threw it out. And he goes, plus I'm Pakistani. I may not be the best guy to fly stuff on an Israeli airline. So, but he had found a contact for me in Israel. So I called over, talked to different people, and then I finally got some camel milk kind of brought through on the great airline, El Al, and they brought it in, and I drove up to get some from these people in LA. And they had been using it for their child, who was neurotypical, but he had a bleeding bowel disease. The child was 4, and he was bleeding 25 times a day. Oh my bleeding. And they gave him camel milk, and it stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got some camel milk from them, and you took it home and just started stockpiling it. And I'm like, I have to get more, I have to get more. I didn't give it yet, because being, of course, scientifically inclined and card trained, I wanted to have data.
Right.
I wanted to be observational.
Right.
I wanted to do some blinded stuff.
But how do you stockpile camel milk? Because is it frozen?
It's frozen. It was frozen, like liter bottles from Israel.
So you have
from
all
the
these
desert.
liter bottles in your freezer.
I have these big yellowish liter bottles, and I'm telling you, when I held those liter bottles in my hand outside my condo off the freeway in Orange County, and I'm holding these bottles of raw, frozen Bedouin camel milk, I'm like, I must be time traveling. Is this real?
It had to have felt kind of like it's a detour. It's a weird kind of thing.
It was more than a detour. It was like a leap to another dimension.
Wow.
And it was really interesting. And
your friends and family had to have thought, Christina, this is a little off the beaten path.
I don't know that I even told that many people about it. I really don't
So
know.
it was just
that
your
I did.
secret camel milk stash.
Kinda. I mean, I told a few people, but I didn't even know yet. Remember, I didn't know it was going to ever do anything. This was all just
But what was the, you were going to stockpile it to do what?
Because
Eventually you were going to give it to him?
I was going to give it to him, but
Okay.
then he wasn't in a program at the time, right? No
Okay.
more card. He had gotten out of card.
Right.
He wasn't in any kind of special program, so I didn't have like therapy data to collect.
Okay.
You know, so
Right.
I was like, how could I try to give this in a scientific manner, being a single mom living behind a, no-till motel on the freeway.
Wow.
So that's why I kind of kept stockpiling it, but I kept getting more.
Wow.
I'm like, it's not going to stop me. I'm just going to get more. But then all of a sudden he started regressing.
Okay.
With autism, you have to be prepared for that. Biomedically, they go up and down.
Yeah.
And with each stage of growth, seems like the hormones influence them. So he started having these behavior plunges. And he just really started getting hard to handle.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no, I cannot handle this too well. I'm a single mother. I don't have any, therapy. I don't have anything. So this was hard. It became very, very hard to live with. He was a wonderful kid and super intelligent and nice and everything like that. Great kid, but very impulsive at the time. And he wanted a 2-story condo. He wanted a 2-story house. So when I sat him down and says, well, Dad and I are splitting up, he's like, am I going to get a 2-story house? Yes, you are. And he's like, yay! So he was very happy about that.
Yeah.
But when he started getting pretty impulsive and hanging off the balcony up there, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So, I was like, this is hard duty right now, really hard duty. So I guess I just kind of kept stockpiling the camel milk and waiting to give it to him, but I just wanted a measurement, which wasn't coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, well, I think we should take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about when you finally made the decision and how you made the decision to give him the camel milk and what happened as a result of that.
Terrific.
And while we're on a break, we'll drink our camel milk. So
There we go.
we'll be right back with more Christina Adams after these messages.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads? It is just, and I feel like, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my car friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, car friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Christina Adams. She's the fabulous author of the book, A Real Boy, which changed my life. So she is a real life hero of mine. She is an amazing autism mom. She's an amazing speaker. As I said, she's a brilliant writer. And she is, you know, we've been talking about this, I think the leading expert in camel milk for autism. In the world, and you've traveled around the world. We want to talk a little bit about World Autism Awareness Day, and we're going to talk about autism around the world in a few minutes, but I'm fascinated with the camel milk thing, I gotta say. You've been talking a little bit about how this idea came to you, and that the instinct, the mother instinct in you said, I wonder if this is something that could be healing for my son. But during the break, I was saying to you, what I'm deeply curious about, you started trying to import camel milk from Israel. And my head says, wouldn't it just be easier to get it here in the United States?
And your head would be absolutely correct. But at that time, there were not camel farms in the United States that were actively selling dairy products. So I didn't know from, you know, camel farms. And there really weren't any doing that, to my knowledge. I mean, they didn't do that till later. So this was 2005 when I had my idea. And so it wasn't until 2012 that, you know, that became a thing, which I wrote an article about, and then people became more aware of it.
And what I remember, you were on the show right about the time that the article came out. What I remember is that there was some kind of funky regulatory thing that you couldn't take it across state lines or something. There were rules that didn't really make sense. Is that still the case?
Well, that's legally kind of a gray area, but here's kind of what the deal was at the time. Camel milk was not in what they call the PMO. It's this, you know, kind of regulation that describes what milk can be sold across state lines. But, you know, it wasn't in the PMO, which means in a way it was not even subject to those issues. Since that time, they've made a few changes to things, but basically it's not an illegal product. People have this idea it's illegal. It's not. So based on where you are, you can get raw milk, you can get pasteurized milk, things like that in the United States. So basically the news is it's accessible to you. In some places you can go to the grocery store, other places you can order it online or call the farmer. Now, a lot of the farmers are from the Amish tradition, and I have enjoyed meeting them. They were the earliest people that really started kind of selling to the public here, and it was a real niche thing for them. They are really hard-working people, and they live on the land. They're very modest. They're very practical, and they believe in doing good deeds. So it's been terrific. They really like serving the community. And it's not only autism, it's diabetes, it's you know, some skin conditions. I find, you know, perhaps juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. There's a lot of conditions that it probably helps in. And there's some data on some of those now. So, you know.
And we should say, I mean, science is not my forte. And anytime I go to a conference and they start putting up the slides of the peptides of casein and opium and gluten.
Then you go like opium. Right,
I literally go, oh no, they're showing slides of peptides again. I can't handle it. You know, I mean, I get the general idea, and I remember as a mom when the first time they showed it, they said this is what opium looks like, and this is what the protein in milk looks like, and this is what the protein in gluten looks like. Notice the similarities. There's only one part that's different. It's like, okay, I got it. Don't explain anything else. Right. I don't want to go there because it's a sleeping pill for me. But camel milk is structured differently.
Well, it has casein in it, but the shape of the casein is thought to be different. It's a different kind of effect than milk from a goat or a cow. It's kind of counterintuitive in a way, because we remove dairy products from our kids, and most of them seem to improve on that. Some to a lesser extent, some more, some not at all. But generally, I think that's like the number one thing you can do for a kid with autism. But then you think, why would I give a milk when, you know, they might start hand flapping or walking in circles or things like that when I give a milk, which my own son used to do when he got regular milk. So it's kind of counterintuitive. But the thing with camel milk that's so interesting is, and we're not going to do the science here because that could
Thank
be
you, because I can't
massive
handle it.
program. I don't want to handle it either, but I have had to sort of, and I don't pretend to be a scientist by any means, but you know, I've grappled with it enough to kind of get what I needed to do out of it. But yeah, let's not go there. So let's just say it seems to have like an anti-inflammatory effect, and there may be some enzymes in it. There may be some healthy acids in it. There may be some other things. But the thing that was so interesting is that it seems to work across all countries. When I first got it in here from Israel, because at that time there were no American camel farms,
Right.
I was like, okay, we're drinking Bedouin camel milk. He drank it, and he got better overnight. Within a few days, even more symptoms changed. He could walk across the street without, you know, grabbing his collar, which I had to do after he'd regressed. His skin cleared up. I mean, all kinds of things. And I did write a medical journal article about that. It's available on PubMed, or, you know, write to me and I'll put that up. But basically, I thought, well, this is it, you know. So I kept flying in more suitcases, and cost money, you know, things like that. But the thing is that it turns out years later, when people in America, when we got our first American camel milk, and I gave it to my son, it worked, no change.
Okay.
It's still working. So that told me, okay, it's not just the magic herbs that the camels eat, you know, in the camel countries.
Right.
It's not just their diet. It's not just the breed that you may have over there. It's working.
It's
and now in
something
the
about
United
the camel.
States, it's and other countries, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that are showing improvements on it. Now, I don't call it a cure. And some kids, you know, you don't see a lot of improvement, but others you see stuff that you just can't believe.
Well, and even on a very basic level, there are a lot of families. You know, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and I talk about this all the time. We go over diet things with our kids on a weekly basis. And the other day, she was talking to me about how frustrated she was about she'd done one kind of milk, and now she was trying a different kind of milk. You know, whether it was almond milk or cashew milk or, you know, and she said, what does Jem do? And I said, you know, we never really did the milk thing, so we don't have a milk substitute. You know, we just don't do it. But she was saying, I really need to have something. My son wants to have milk with his cereal. And I said, gosh, we just don't. Now, there are times that Jem will say to me, you know, what is this like, or what is that like? And, you know, I want to do this. I want for him to try camel milk to see but milk is a foreign substance to him.
Right.
He doesn't recall it.
Okay, and here's the thing that's interesting, and that, yeah, doesn't even recall it. Interesting, huh? But that shows you were on top of it. But that was the other thought. Talking about that day when you said, what did he say to you that triggered your intuition, the camel man at the book fair, he just told me those two things. But my other thought, the first one was, oh, I think this could help my son boost his immune system and maybe lessen his autism. Second one was, this could be a great dairy substitute for people that can't have dairy, like him and like other people. Because the nut milks, the almond milks, the soy milks, they can all set off your allergies in these kids. And you don't want to get stuck into that rotation diet thing where you're like, oh, did I have rice yesterday? Quinoa tomorrow, corn, GMO-free corn the next day. Like, oh my gosh, so tedious.
And honestly, a lot of the milk substitutes, I find, they're jacked up with a lot of other ingredients that I don't want to put into my body or into my child's body. And a lot of it is sugar. And it's a higher carb than it is a protein. That, you know, when you're really looking at what milk is, it's a higher protein than carbs. So this... On a very basic level, this can be a milk substitute, but it also has healing properties for a digestive system that we know for a lot of our kids on the autism spectrum, their digestive systems need some healing.
Right. Like one of the influences that I saw of camel milk in a young adult, 19-year-old, autistic person, very, outwardly very severely autistic person, nonverbal, all those kind of things, motor skill involvement, stuff like that. This kid, when he drank camel milk, he had formed stools for the first time in his life.
Wow.
Okay, and think about that.
That's
the
a very
parents
exciting thing.
don't have to do the, stuff they might have to do
Right.
otherwise.
Right.
The young man, he's going to feel much more comfortable. He had formed stools for the first time ever. That doesn't sound like that big of a deal, like in a
it's a
normal
very
world,
big
but
deal.
for a parent that has to have that and the young
Yeah.
man that has to have that, miracle. Like,
It's
great.
a very big deal.
Mhm.
And, it all makes sense to me. As somebody who has been allergic to wheat and now I'm allergic to cow's milk,
Oh.
it all makes perfect sense to me. And I also want to say, too, that it's always, for me, my mother instinct is always about the yeast. That there's a yeast component to my child and to myself. And I know right around when Jem was diagnosed with autism, I had a series of sinus infections. And the doctor had just put antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. And this was back in the day before I had ever heard about a probiotic. And before doctors were saying, if you're going to take that antibiotic, you better take it with a probiotic. And I remember saying to my doctor that I was having trouble focusing my eyes.
Really?
And he was like, well, I don't know what that has to do with anything. But I now know when I take an antibiotic and my probiotic situation gets upended, I have a harder time making eye contact.
Wow.
I absolutely know that. So it all makes great sense to me.
And see, that is why when people say, okay, which I get, this is kind of what I've been doing a lot. I get a lot of people writing to me from all over the country and the different countries all over the world. And I really wish I could, when I get the chance, I try to ask them a little bit about family history. Because to me, family history is such a strong indicator of A, is this a systemic issue in the family?
Right.
And where did it come from? And then B, is there going to be, yeast, thrush if it's a baby sometimes, other things like that crop up. And then I know then sometimes it's not just the child that should try the milk, it's the family. And it's the only milk that we drink anymore. And I didn't even do that on purpose because I was still at some point drinking some cow milk here and there because I don't have a problem with that. Other things, but now it's it.
And so do you make things that you would normally have cow's milk in with the camel milk? Like, are you making camel milk ice cream?
I make camel milk smoothies. I had to, I'm from an Appalachian childhood. They had that homemade ice cream with the peach chunks in it back in the day. I've already done my farming. I've already done my homemade ice cream making. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't like it. I just don't have time for that with doing other things. But I do make smoothies out of it. I've made other things out of it. But to me, I prefer the most natural form of camel milk I can get. But then I also like the wonderful powder for different reasons. So to everything, it's camel milk purpose, right? I've made cookies, I've made syrups, I've made all kinds of things out of it. I've home pasteurized it, flash pasteurized, to see what the taste is.
Yeah.
People that are in the food world are interested because they say, well, what does it taste like? And so if you're talking about a raw natural milk, camel milk, it differs from farm to farm. You can taste the grasses, you can taste the seasons, you can taste the soil a little bit. It's like a fine cheese.
Right.
So you can taste, sometimes it'll be stage of lactation in the camel. So to me, everyone is like a fresh pleasure of just cracking that seal and what's it going to be today?
So when you get your camel milk, obviously you have the powdered here. Now that's pasteurized, the powdered stuff.
It's probably very lightly pasteurized.
Okay.
But there's different methods. It could be freeze dried. It could be pasteurized. Different things like that. So whatever you're looking at, the science is evolving on what's surviving in it, what isn't surviving in it. So that's why I don't want to get too technical on this because there's still a lot of information that's being developed.
Okay.
Is pasteurized as good as raw? If it's pasteurized or freeze dried, how much of the beneficial stuff survives versus how much doesn't? So,
but when you get yours, are you getting it fresh, frozen, pasteurized, not pasteurized?
I get it all different ways. I get it from all different people. I get it all different ways.
Okay.
So I like to try it all.
And does it have a layer of cream?
You know what? That's interesting because my first milk from the Bedouins, It had, the bottle was coated with the white, creamy fat. And they told me, scrape that stuff out because it's probably got a lot of healing stuff in it.
Okay, so scrape it out to eat it, not scrape it out to get rid of it.
Never
scrape
waste it, never waste
Okay,
it.
okay.
And to me, that was really powerful milk. Really powerful.
And is it just creamy, or does it taste good?
You know what? It was fine. It tasted great. But here's the thing that was so interesting. Before I'd ever had camel milk, it was very strange because, you know, I was saving it for my son, but I thought, okay, I have to at least try this.
Right.
Because it was so precious. I don't want to waste a drop on me.
Right.
But I thought I should at least try this.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever took it, I took, you know, like a shot, like 4 ounces or something.
Right.
And I had this weird thing like whoosh, like it sort of whooshed over me. I had this kind of like,
you had a moment.
I did, but it was weird. It went through my brain. It went through my mind. Ooh.
Wow.
I felt it. It's like, wow. And then somebody I know, a friend of mine, gave it to their kid, and his face turned bright red for just a minute, just a little bit.
Okay.
It's pretty strong stuff, and that stuff from the Bedouins was really strong. That's really strong milk. But
Fascinating.
But all of it is if works. That's the good part. So yeah, some of our farms now in the United States, they're getting that fat composition, and I love to see it in the bottles. I'm like, oh yeah, you're doing great there, pal.
The elixir. Well, and we talked during the break. I want to go to a camel farm. I love camels in general. When I was a child, I wanted a camel. I don't know why.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I did. I don't know why. And I've always been fascinated by, because they say camels spit, so you shouldn't get too close to them. But I always have wanted to be close enough to be spit on by a camel. Like, not because I want to be spit on by a camel, but I want to be that close.
Well, you can be that close. You don't need to get spit on by a camel.
Okay.
The whole spit thing is even like a little bit, controversial, because people that love camels will say they don't spit, they just get stressed and saliva comes out of their mouth. And other people are like, it was angry and it spit on me. But whatever it is,
all how you look
it's
at
all
it.
good, and it's
all
how the
perspective.
camel's being handled and how you get close to it. So we got to make that happen.
Okay, so if people want to get camel milk, what do you recommend? Is there like a camel milk site that they can go to and find out if there's something near them?
You know what? I recommend that they write to me.
Okay.
And then what I like to do is determine where they are. Because if you can order it, I love to support the farmers who are living on the land and doing it. I call them the American pastoralists, the Amish and people that are living on the land like that. So I like to support them. If you can order direct from them, I think that's great. And I can see where you are and try to direct you to someone near them.
So
If you're
how
in
do they
another
find you?
country, I will help you with that. Just write to me at cadams@xiqllc.com. Also, I have a Facebook page and a Twitter. Maybe you can put my Facebook page link up in a little while, but you can find me on Facebook, Christina Adams, Autism Author Advocate or something like that. And also I'm on Twitter at Camel Milk Info.
At Camel Milk Info. Okay, great. We're going to take a break, and then we really are going to come back and talk about autism around the world. So stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. My beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh? Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so lucky because we have with us on this wonderful day Christina Adams. She's an author, a speaker, and an advocate. As we've been saying, she is probably the international expert on camel milk for autism. Which is an amazing thing, and she's traveled a great deal, and so we had an opportunity to talk with her, and we were talking about World Autism Awareness Day, and she said, I'll come in and talk about autism around the world, and I thought, who better to do that? And it's also just a good excuse for me to get to spend time with you, because I just adore you. And you're just amazing. So you brought this wonderful book, and I want you to talk to our audience a little bit about why.
Well, I think that one of the things with autism that people tend to overlook when you are in the early stages and you're talking about, trying this, fixing that, therapizing that, all these things is basically there's a lot of social isolation that's going to go on probably for a long time. If you're one of those people that grew up in your hometown and have the supportive friends and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to be better for you. But a lot of people don't have that in today's society.
Yeah.
They move a lot. Or the kids get left out. At every stage, it's kind of like the kids get left behind a little more by developmental milestones. So the thing is, still, you always have to try to integrate, but you also still have to develop your own path. And I think it's important for kids, though, to remember, all children, that they're part of a larger world. And I had this book that I've kept for a long time. I just fell in love with it. And it's a beautiful book, Children Just Like Me, a unique celebration of children around the world. It's I guess it's DK. This is one of those great publishers for kids, but it's a common publisher.
And done in
kids.
Association with UNICEF.
Yeah, with UNICEF, and it's beautiful. It has children from all over the world, and I think that children with autism are really going to enjoy this because it has a lot of the kids who are, pictures. It's very visual. It has a lot of great information, which our intelligent children love, to have. Learn. So I just like this, and I think it lets them realize there are other children in the world, even when they're all alone and isolated, which is going to happen occasionally if they're on the autism spectrum. I think they need to know there's a bigger world out there and that they can have a place in it. So,
and I love that, Christina, because we talk about World Autism Awareness and World Autism Awareness Day and the month and all these things, and there's all this controversy about, well, aren't we done with awareness? And I don't think we are personally done with awareness. I don't think we're ever going to be done with awareness. I think that yes, there are other things that we need to pay attention to as well, but awareness is a big deal. But I think we forget that while we're trying to make the world aware of autism, we forget that we have to make our kids aware of all kinds of things that are going on in the world. So I just love that way of shifting the equation to what are we doing to make our kids who are on the spectrum aware of the world.
I think that's good because, first of all, a lot of them are big thinkers. They're intelligent kids. When you test children with autism with the appropriate methods, nonverbal even, they turn up statistically as higher intelligence than neurotypical. Sorry, said it. But
anyway. Don't be sorry at all, because we celebrate that.
Yeah, I mean, all kids are wonderful. It doesn't matter if they're so-called smart or not. There's a ton of hidden intelligences out there. And the old school IQ stuff is important, but it's really not. It's just kind of primitive when you come to understand, what humans are made of and what they have to offer. So yeah, just trying to get those children, never underestimate them, let them know there's a bigger world out there. And the way things are moving online internationally, certainly the chances are higher that they're going to have connections with people from other parts of the world and other cultures, even in our own country. But yeah, so speaking of that, I guess I sent some pictures to you to kind of chat about some of
Because
this
you've done a
global
great deal
stuff.
of traveling.
I have been lucky to do a fair share.
Tell us a little bit about where you've been, and then we'll call to Kelby. Okay, Kelby's got a picture up right now.
There's our friend Kelby.
And I don't know if you can see it there. So tell us what this is, Christina.
Okay, well, it's funny because being in the Camel World autism niche, I get contacted by a lot of people. But it's not just autism, though. Let me just say that autism is just a window on the world, and I urge you as a parent to look through that lens and find someplace where you can fit and keep having a life of your own. Be it global, great. Be it your local, roadside lemonade stand, fine too. It's all good. But for me, the autism led me to the bigger world through camel milk. So that's a way that a lot of people find me. Autism, other diseases, camel, whatever. So now I have this great connection with a very special people. There are some camel cultures, and they are the people that have known about camels for thousands of years, lived with camels for thousands of years, and the Raika people who live on the border of Pakistan in the desert in India, in Rajasthan. There's about 17,000 of them. He said to me, we type, I've never spoken to him, of course, but he writes me, hello, Adams, how are you today? And I'm like, hi, I am fine. He's like, there's big celebration in my village. I'm like, oh, good, because here it's celebration for us too. So it can be a little disjointed English, but we get the meaning eventually. So this great tribe, the Raika, they're camel people. They consider them members of their family. They are the ones that in PubMed, back when I started looking at camel milk, there was some studies about the Raika people have no history of diabetes.
Wow.
Zero history at all. It turns out it's probably because they drank camel milk all the time. Because camel milk does seem to help diabetes. It can lower the blood sugar.
Interesting.
Yeah, so those are a very special people. So I have a connection with them now, and they are just struggling to survive because in a bureaucratic snafu over there has sort of made camel milk illegal to sell. But it's not really illegal. It's just caught into the fact that it's not listed in the milks that it's allowed to sell. You can sell buffalo milk, you can sell cow milk, but the camel milk just quite doesn't seem to have been listed yet from what I'm gathering from people. So they really need to be able to start selling it because the culture's dying out. They're very poor. Almost all of them are not able to read and write, but their intelligence and their cultural awareness is phenomenal. And they are struggling to survive. Netha and his people, and he's a young groom, he just got married, and his people are just struggling to survive, and he makes beautiful blankets and costumes for camels, and they're the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen. But these are the women of his village dealing with sheep and camel milk right there. And that's the kind of people that reach out to me, and they need to survive because environmentally, camels are way better for the planet than cows are. The environmental impact is so much lower, and the milk is so valuable that they really need to survive, and their cultural knowledge, their health. Now that unfortunately they're kind of dying down, they're starting to get diabetes.
Wow. And so have you actually been there yet, Christina? Are you
I have not
with
been
them online?
I have not been there yet. I have been to India, and but at that time I wasn't. I was doing some other things. I have been to India. They would love me to come over there, and I'd like to come over there. It's very far.
And it's a very tumultuous time.
Yeah, it's on the border of Pakistan. I would go, though. It's just that they need to get the airfare up. So I've told them, look, I would love to come over, but, you know, I also have been invited to the Sudan, but then they have the lodging, they have the conference, they have food, but, you know, these are poor countries.
Yes.
So I'm like, I would need the airfare, so they're trying. A lot of people are trying to get that together, but it's a disadvantaged world, the pastoralists over there.
We've got some more pictures in Kelby. Yeah, so what is this?
That is Netha Raika, the young groom. There he is on his wedding day.
Oh,
and he said he'd be delighted for me to use the pictures. He's sort of a young spokesman that's trying to help his people. And that's his bride behind him with the beautiful veil over her face and those beautiful children. So these are the people that are displaced. You know, they're not displaced, but they're getting displaced.
Right.
He lives in a village of 70 houses, he says. And so he's just doing the best he can to try to bring awareness to his people and the cause of the camel.
And they really respect the camels. Let's say that you know the camels aren't quite members of the family, but the camels are well taken care
They
of.
consider them the members of their family.
Okay.
That's what they said. You know, that's what they talk
they're
about.
family members.
They live with them. They drink from them. It's their
Okay.
it's their pantry, their heritage, their skill set.
So
It's
they're well cared
everything.
for.
Oh yeah.
And we've got a couple of pictures. We've got a picture of a camel, I think, Kelby, somewhere in amongst the mix. Or just show us another. Okay, so
that is what a conference looks like in Rajasthan. That's a camel conference, and that is a wonderful woman named Ilse Kohler-Roelofsen, and she is a German woman who has lived with the tribe for 20 years, and she's doing her best to help them and help the camel culture survive. So that's a conference over there.
Wonderful. And so Kelby says we're running out of time. So
but
unfortunately, because we were like, we have so much time,
I know.
but there's never enough time. But you've gone other places. You've gone to Dubai, yes?
Well, after I came on your show, you put the clip on YouTube, and a wonderful camel dairy in Dubai saw it, and I went over there, and we had a terrific time. And I think you have a picture of the Burj Al Arab, which was lit up blue. Kelby, if you can show that. We had a great time reaching out to families. I spoke to families. I spoke to some regular kids who were trying to learn about their autistic brethren. It was so moving. And I was able to do some outreach there. So now I hear from a lot of families in the Middle East and other countries too. Australia, any place where they hear about camel milk, which is global now. So it's been a really wonderful journey. And but then you can get camel milk in America here, so don't forget that.
Okay, so, but we really want to encourage people around the world to be thinking during World Autism Awareness about all the different people that are around the world that are dealing with this, and we want to encourage people to give this a try.
We do, and just as a thank you for having me on the show, and I like to buy myself a little camel jewelry here and there. This is from the Tuareg tribe, a wonderful camel culture, and I wanted you to have a little jewelry from the
Thank you.
From Afghanistan, and it's lighted up blue for Autism Day.
Oh, this is beautiful. I'm going to wear this right now. It's absolutely beautiful. And so this was made by the tribe?
No, that's just from an Afghanistan person, from Afghani guy, but they do have Bactrians up in the mountains. So
absolutely. Thank you so much.
There
How
you
precious.
go. And you know, autism families, we're all in this together. The global picture just shows you that we all deal with the same issues. We all want the same thing for our kids. And in this time of great strife in the world, I want to tell you, every religion, every culture I hear from, we are all the same. We come together, we help each other, and there's good people everywhere.
It is amazing to me that, you know, I love Eustacia Cutler, Temple Grandin's mom. Mm-hmm. We've had her on the show. And one of the things that she said to me that just resonated so much, she said, you know, it's so important for all of us to find our tribe. And that is the word she used, our tribe. And to find our place where we fit in. It's important for us to help our kids to find their place where they fit in. But it's funny to me in my life, I always had tons of friends from all different walks of life all over the world. I still have a very diverse group of friends, but I don't know that I ever felt like I 100% fit in anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's funny to me that among the gifts that autism brought to me is that I have a tribe. Yeah. I have a tribe now. It doesn't matter where I am or where I go. I can be in line at the bank, or I can be in Kansas in the middle of a cornfield. I could travel to Dubai, and I will surely find either a person who is on the autism spectrum or their parent or a teacher, yes, and we are connected instantly forever.
That, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if we have time to show the Somali clip.
Do we have time, Kelby? Let's make time. Do you have the clip? It's really short. Let's show it.
It's really short because I think this tribal elder living in San Diego in the Somalis said a very wonderful thing when I was interviewing him in an apartment there.
Okay. Here we go.
For my people, I tell you what I have experienced. It was useful for my family and for other people. So we have to exchange.
What he's saying is there's a give and take between people. We're all in this world together. We give and we take, and that's what we should do because we all share this world together.
And Christina was just telling me, because we weren't able to hear it here, so what a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. We all do share this world together. What a wonderful thought for us to end on here, getting ready for World Autism Awareness Day. Do you know what you're doing on Saturday?
I don't.
All right. I know
I
you'll
will
find
start. I'll start by probably going online and seeing who needs help right now and having a camel milk smoothie.
That's a wonderful way to commemorate it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that we are going to be at the Walk Now for Autism on Saturday morning. Come to our booth and blow some bubbles with us. Imperial Toys has helped us out, and we're gonna be doing some bubbles. And don't forget that we have all those fabulous bears that Dee Wallace gave us that we're gonna be giving away. We've got a couple of other giveaways too. So come by the booth if you're gonna be in the Pasadena area and visit us. Don't forget that next week, it's funny that tomorrow will mark, we've been doing the show now for 4 years.
Wow.
4 years tomorrow. So starting next Wednesday, we're going to be moving into what I guess is season 4 of Autism Live.
That's terrific.
Isn't it?
And you know, I did make a new speaker sheet because I'm getting more speaking requests. So I believe I might have sent that to you. So maybe at some point we'll get that speaker sheet so people that want to reach me and learn more about this.
Absolutely.
They can find it
if you have the opportunity, if you've got a group of people and you're looking for a speaker, I highly recommend having Christina come and speak to your group. She's amazing. And give them your email again.
cadams@xiqllc.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us here on this wonderful day.
My pleasure.
We're totally out of time. Really want to thank Kelby and all of our guests today, Dr. Temple Grandin, Matt Asner, and all of the friends that he brought with him, and of course, Christina Adams. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.